Zachary Fisher, joining us live here on Facebook and YouTube. Zachary, welcome.
Welcome. How you doing?
Yeah, welcome to the show, Conscious Heart Solutions. I'm excited to have this conversation with you and hear more about your story. I know that there are a lot of people, you've got a huge following. People look up to you, and I recently, through a mutual Facebook friend, became aware of you and the influence that you have on the CUE movement.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I think what you're doing is fantastic. And not only do I want to know more, but I'm sure that there are plenty of people that look up to you and seek guidance from you. Would love to hear more about your story. So first, can we start with where'd you grow up at, and tell us a little bit about your background and your family? And
Sure. Well, I'm Zach. Obviously, everybody probably knows that. I grew up in the suburbs of Maryland, outside of Baltimore, in I guess what you would call an affluent area, a county of the state, and was probably considered a fortunate child through my life. Right, my father owned one of the largest fireplace companies in the U.S. and back in the 80s, when the recession hit, his company was sitting on a lot of inventory and ended up bankrupting his business, which affected my life in a huge way, right? There was a lot of ego, I guess, when your parents are successful, and then next thing you know, you are driving around in a vehicle that has a hole in the back seat where you can see the ground as you were driving. So, a lot of the insecurities that I carried through my life stemmed from childhood, just like probably 99% of us, right? If we could meet our younger versions of ourselves and you good?
yeah, sorry.
Okay. We meet a younger version of ourselves and say sorry, we probably would, right? So when I was approximately second grade, I was diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia, which means I turned all my letters around and read at a probably a kindergarten reading rate at the time. The only school that was available was a very affluent private school. It was called St. Paul's, which is up in north of Baltimore. I commuted 45 minutes every day. My dad would get me there. And it started at a very young age where I was already separated from the group of quote unquote normal kids, right? We were in remedial reading or classes for people that were, in the eyes of other students, were less than intelligent. Mm-hmm. So I was always able to befriend anybody and did a good job of it and was friends with the normal, quote unquote, normal kids. And there was a lot of instances where they would pick on kids that were in my class that had the same issues that I had, right? So I ended up becoming an angry kid, I would guess you'd say. I defended other people when they were treated poorly, right? And that's something I valued my whole life, is the fact that, if somebody is less fortunate than me, then I'm not different than them, right? I'm the same person as them. And I knew it in my heart and soul that, just because, you're less fortunate, you have a learning disability or you have a handicap or whatever, you are, still a human being, right? So my whole life I fought, you know, every sport that I was in. I played ice hockey and I was a goon. I, spent more time in the penalty box than I did actually probably playing the sport. So I had a lot of anger. And then once you couple that with my dad losing his business and me being pulled out of the private school and being dumped into a public school setting, it was a difficult transition for me, right? So, beginning sixth grade, my father lost his business, and school had started, and I was about a month into school, and I hadn't actually attended a day. And my dad kept telling me he was working on it. He was working on it. He was trying to work things out with the private school. And about a month after, I ended up dumped into the public school. And, I went from an all boys school to a school with girls and didn't know how to act, right? When a girl would talk to me, I actually was physically frightened, right? It was a weird experience. Um, so when I was 12, I found the ability to party, right? I drank. I became the life of the party. I became invincible, right? So I basically decided that my persona was going to be the party guy, right? And the class clown and whatever, right? And a lot of it was just, myself hurting, right? I went through life fighting and feeling at the same time that I was probably more privileged than other kids, right? And now all of a sudden I'm in a public school and I'm the same, right? Um, so I at 12 started to drink heavily enough that you know my dad was having to help my friends into the house drunk, putting them into a cold shower. Quickly moved into smoking marijuana by age 13. Um, I would say that there was more days that I was drunk than not. Um, and that continued for many, 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 many years. It only became worse when I was 21. I ended up dropping out of college and gave up on every sport that I'd ever played that was important to me, and became a functioning alcoholic slash addict, right?
Can I ask you a question real quick, Zachary?
Yeah, go ahead.
So did your either one of your parents struggle with drugs or alcohol? I mean,
Well, my dad did. He hit it well, though.
yeah.
The only experience I remember was one night we woke up and my mom was yelling at my dad, and we came out into the yard, and he had backed his car into a tree that was about 30 feet away from the driveway and put a huge dent into it. And it wasn't until later on in life that I realized what had happened. He had come home drunk and ran into the tree. And then another time, and I didn't even know what had happened until years later. My brother told me we were actually heading to see Star Wars back in I guess it would have been one of the 70s, 80s, early 80s.
Right.
And we were driving, he got pulled over and he ended up in handcuffs and was taken by the police officer. My mom said that it was because he did not have a driver's license and that they had to take him in to confirm who he was, which I believed as a kid, right? And he was good at hiding it, right? Which made me really good at hiding it when I needed to, right? So I went through, college. I dropped out of college. I ended up starting a commercial window company with my father when I was 22 or 23. And we ended up growing that business substantially. My brother ended up coming in after about a year, and we grew the company to a $27 million a year business. And I was making more money than most professional athletes at the time. And my ego was got inflated along with my bank account, right? I vacationed 5 times a year down in the islands, whether I wanted to or not, right? And I felt as though I was entitled to do that, right? I would speed doing 95 miles an hour down the road and get a ticket, like a 5-point ticket, and I just knew that I could pay it, right? And I had this self-inflated ego that was ginormous, right? And that carried over into relationships. It carried over into a lot of things. And through college and the start of my business, I started to dabble with cocaine. And cocaine started out that I was doing it at bachelor parties, events, right? Fun times. So I thought, right? And every time I did it, I was like, I don't really like that, right? So years into, probably 4 or 5 years into owning the business, I had more money than I knew what to do with. I was surrounded by people that were using me for the fact that I had money and the ability to pay for things, right?
Mhm.
If I went out, everybody expected me to pay for it. If I went on a vacation, they expected to go for free. It was a nasty type of deal. And, when you're in it, you don't realize it, right? So I got into a real,
Or you surround yourself with people because somehow it makes you feel superior and more
right,
powerful to have people depending on you. Or
right.
yeah, I get it.
And deep down inside, I was very lonely, right? I was
Oh,
still
absolutely,
that
I
boy
get
that
it.
had been hurt, right? So I ended up developing a really, really bad cocaine habit. And most people, when I tell them, don't believe me. Um, but I was doing the equivalent of $600 a day in cocaine, which is 2 8 balls a day. I had a guy that would deliver it to my mailbox every night and then wake up in the morning, it would be there, which in hindsight was a stupid idea, right? I mean, having drugs delivered to a mailbox is a federal crime, first of all. But I
Well,
didn't
who's our
care. I
biggest
mean,
drug dealers,
right,
Zachary? Is it, I mean, the cocaine import
right.
agency. I mean, I mean, a lot of people that I'm connected with, we tease about that a bit behind the scenes because unfortunately our government's the biggest drug dealers out here.
Well,
And
let me
they're,
tell you,
yeah,
I could tell you who I was buying it from,
okay.
and he was a guy. He was actually an ex-DEA agent,
Mhm.
and his buddies were all still agents down in Colombia, and that's where they were confiscating it and then reselling it from. And not to brag, but I mean, it was some of the purest cocaine that you could ever have, right? And this is one thing I tell myself all the time is I was fortunate enough that I could actually afford it. Because if I couldn't have, I would have done, you know, whatever the step down is from that, and my life would have turned out, you know, way differently. Um, so I did that for approximately 3 years while I was owning my business. I was very uninvolved with my business. I would lock myself in my bed or my office at work, and I would do cocaine from 7 in the morning till 7 at night. And then after that, I would drink and smoke weed to bring myself down so I could sleep, and then repeat. Right, and it was a daily habit that became absurd. Um, so my wife at the time, she had found it and sent me to an outpatient um, doctor because I refused to go to a rehab center. I went, saw him for about a month, and I was doing pretty well. I, had stopped using it, and one night my wife went on an overnight trip, and I had deleted my dealer's number, and I was driving home from talking to my counselor, and I had an urge. And I said to myself, if I dial his number and he answers, then I was meant to do it. Somehow or another, I'd never dialed his number one day in my life. I'd only hit send, right? I pulled it out of my butt, and he answered the phone, and I ended up relapsing. And I made it a few weeks, and my wife had found a bag in my pocket again and was like, we need to do something. She contacted my father, and my father got involved, and he said, look, it's time we do something. You need to go to rehab. And I kept saying, no, 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 I'm not going to do that. I could continue with my counselor. I got it under control. I just slipped up. I slipped up. So my next time I went in to go see him, it ended up becoming basically an intervention. And it was like, hey, Zach, this isn't working out. It's time we do something different with you. We think you should go to an inpatient facility and get some help. And I fought and I said, no, I think this will work fine. This will work fine. And then he finally got to me one time when I said, all right, I'll do it. I'll do it. But you can't send me to a place with a bunch of crackheads. And this is what changed me and my outlook for a lot of things. He goes, what do you think you are? And that's the moment that struck me the hardest, that my ego thought that I was any different than anybody at this facility, right? And I had always prided myself on being able to work with the blue collar employees that we had, and they related to me. But at that point, I realized how big of an a-hole I really was, right? The drugs had me so bad that I thought I was better, right? Just because I could afford cocaine and not crack. So he got me into a facility up in upstate New York. It was called Marworth. Marworth, yeah, and it's actually where Brett Favre had gone, and it was a place for doctors, nurses, police officers, and paramedics, which was interesting because you got to see how many of them there really are, right? I mean,
there's a lot of them for sure.
There were a lot of anesthesiologists that were there. They were there for 3 months at a time. You had doctors that you wouldn't want operating on you, right? But what they're doing is giving people doses and then taking what they don't throw in the trash can and using it for themselves. The police officers and nurses were more, the police officers were more alcohol, and a lot of that was from PTSD and stress and so forth. And then, the younger patients were all part of the pill society, right? They were the worst, right? My heart broke for the people that were on prescription like OxyContin and oxycodone. That people don't understand that drug is actually pharmaceutical heroin, and you would actually be better off being addicted to heroin than you would oxycodone. Because the thing about oxycodone is that it actually leaches into your bones, and it takes up to a year for it to leach back out, which means that you are suffering from pain and debilitation for a year, right? You're not.
I might differ with you with that, but I appreciate what you just said, because I mean, we're just meeting, but just
right
to share with you, I mean, I laid in my bed and detoxed myself off of everything.
Right.
And I've used everything. And
right.
I'm not, this isn't about me, but just for relation purposes.
Right.
You can, once you make your mind up, you lay there and you let yourself go through the detox.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's mental, and the health professionals will tell you that you need to do it. I'm not saying that there aren't cases where you definitely need to be weaned off and monitored and so forth, but have you ever considered that you may have been being used in a MyLab program or
absolutely
government program? Okay,
absolutely.
right.
I mean, and that's was another story, is the fact that this school that I went to, I think there was a lot of programming that was happening there. I mean, and they did it under the guise of using flashcards to reteach me to read, right? And it was day long of flashcard, right?
Programming.
Yeah, and it is a form of programming. And fact is that understanding now is that dyslexia is actually a gift. It wasn't, it wasn't an issue, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, Zachary, I'm listening to you, and I'm super sensitive, so I can pick up certain things and tell you that you're well on your way and you're doing great, and I'm very happy for you.
Yeah. No, I'm doing. I
think it's
more than great. So let me keep going. Let me keep going here.
Okay.
This is just the beginning. So after where were we again?
You were talking
So I
about
was in rehab,
flashcards.
and I was up there, and my oldest daughter was 3, and my youngest was 3 months, and I had been there for 2 weeks. Actually, no, I think it was like 10 days I had been there, and it ended up being Father's Day, and my daughters came up to visit me, and that's when it really, really hit me what I had done, right? And I looked at my daughters, and I was like, I can't believe I'm making my daughters come visit me at a center like this, and I'm having to lie to them and tell them I'm here for work, and it broke my heart, and I ended up getting myself sober, and it was a decision, right? It like, and this is, a lot of people might not like what I say, but AA has its purpose. It definitely has its purpose, but there is an underlying issue that I have with AA, and I believe that
You keep going in and out. Is there any way?
yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see what
Sorry about that.
Sorry,
It's just,
the sun's setting behind us here.
no, you're fine. I mean, I love
And
nature behind you. There you go. That's better.
yeah, so AA to me leaves leaves people as victims. It teaches people that you're an addict, and that you are it's a disease. And lots of people have lots of different opinions, but I personally think that it is a choice that we make on a day-to-day basis. When I was there, something snapped in me, and it was like, I will never touch cocaine another day in my life. And it was as quick as
That's
that.
exactly what happened to me. Same thing.
Right.
And I agree with you. In AA and NA, if you ever notice the symbolism for I mean, I can get real deep on you about that, Zachary.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, but I definitely do know that it has helped many people, but it becomes a crutch. People don't, they could be in there for 20 years and really don't do a whole lot.
Well, the issue that I had with it is that they tell you that you are a victim, basically, that you are always, and you will always be an addict, right? And I don't look at it this way, right? I look at it as, that was a choice that I made in my life back then, to live a chaotic and uncontrolled life, right? And instead, what they need to do is teach you to be empowered with your life, right? My whole life I was a victim, right? I was picked on. I was taught that I was less than, right? Even though I had everything in the world, I felt less than everybody, right?
Were you taught that you were less than, or did you feel that way because of your circumstances?
I was taught that way in a way, right? I was never considered a normal kid because I was in,
I understand.
right?
Yeah.
So it's a
program.
It's all programs that the schools have done, and so forth.
Yeah.
So after 2 weeks, I ended up leaving, and that's when I'd say my first spiritual awakening happened. Right. That's when I got back home, and I looked around, and I realized that everybody around me was using me, right, including my wife. Everybody like was there, and I started to look at everybody and go, are you here because of what I'm offering you, or are you here because of who I am, right? And then start to realize that they're obviously not there because of who you are, because all I've done is lied about doing drugs, and use people as badly as they were using me, right? So I went on for a while, and went back to work, and dreaded every day I went back to work, because I realized that I didn't like it. It was the money made me miserable. The people around me made me miserable. The responsibility made me miserable. And the way that I went through life made me miserable, right? So I made a decision one night and decided to leave my wife. At the same time, shortly after I decided to leave my business, I walked away from it. which everybody thought I was crazy. Man, how could you walk away from making, $2 million a year? And the answer is I don't know how. I don't know why, but something happened inside of me that said the only way I will ever stay sane and sober is if I walk. And the only way I will ever be happy is if I do something different than I'm doing today, right? Everybody kept pushing me to do AA, and I'm a private person. Most people, a lot of people watching tonight have never seen my picture. I don't show my face too often, right? Except for people that I get close to. So this is the second live podcast I've done. So
Well, I sure appreciate you coming on, Zachary, and I can tell you that you're talking to the right one because I have had challenges. I've never made $2 million in my life.
right,
Although I've been around people that have. I've
yeah,
been around money. Yeah. I've never personally made that kind of money, but and I struggle with drugs and alcohol. The first time I got high, I was 6 years old. My brother
yeah,
gave me a bong and a pot and watched me run around the room high, and I started cocaine at 12. And I
right,
could go on and on and on. I was very young,
right,
but I also was used in the my lab. I mean, I was used in super soldier program, and they used cocaine to manipulate me to get me to go on missions. I'm not suggesting that is your case, that you were, but it sounds like you have some of the
yeah,
markings that would suggest that you were being used in some of these programs.
yeah,
I'm
for
not saying
sure.
yeah.
And
So
I've gotten to the point where I've gotten to that understanding through inner inner processes, right? Where I understand something happened somewhere along the line with me that made me who I am, right? And my inner guidance basically told me not to worry about my childhood, right? And to worry about what's happening. And so I ended up walking away from a 10,000 square foot home, my wife, and a business that made me $2 million a year. And people all around me thought I was crazy. That was 17 years ago. Well, no, I went to rehab 17 years ago, and it was probably 14 years ago that I left my wife. And I walked away from everything, sold my part of the business, and um, went off on my own, right? And I had enough money that I didn't need to work at the time, and I stayed home with my girls, and they were in private school, and I helped them with their homework, and I packed their lunches, and I did all those things, and realized how hard that job is, right? Like that was
I love to hear that. That's fantastic.
it was an awful, awful job, and mothers need a lot more appreciation than they get.
Sure.
Um, so shortly after that, I realized I was bored, right? And I opened up a landscaping business and got remarried. And I married a woman that was sent here to destroy me. And that she did. She took every cent that I had, ruined my reputation. And she was what I would call the Jezebel entity, right? That came to absolutely destroy me. And she did. She did an awesome job of it, right? She left me basically homeless, right? And for a long time, I felt like a victim. And then after some time, after we had gotten divorced, I finally got the nerve to leave. And some of it was because she made me leave, right? After she took everything, she positioned herself to keep the house and in the car, everything was in her name, and she sent me packing, right? Um, and I ended up actually living in a hotel for 6 months, which was like a period where I had PTSD literally from the relationship that I had been in. She was evil. Like she made it made my kids not talk to me anymore. She made it uh so that my dad, my brother wouldn't talk to me. Like she was really sent here to do this,
It
right?
sounds like, yeah, you were being targeted.
Yeah. And
And they use people. I know a little bit about this kind of stuff, Zachary. They use people closest to us to target
to
us,
destroy
especially
us.
when we're powerful souls and we have big missions.
Right. But what
So,
they didn't plan on was the fact that it's exactly what I needed.
mhm.
Because with all of that stuff that she took my ego, she took me and shot me down to the darkest place in my life, right? I was living in an RV for a few weeks, or like a month or something like that, and got to a point where I eventually got a house. In my house, I didn't have enough money to put oil into the heater, and I sat there in my bed with blankets on. You could see my breath, and it was, a long, miserable winter. But that was where I was reborn, right? I found myself, and I realized that none of that stuff mattered to me, and it actually made me miserable. The people that came with it, the whole lifestyle of the suburban life, it was not for me, right? Trying to keep up with the Joneses was part of the game, right?
I call it the dream spell, but anyways, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so we all were born with this, yeah, the dream spell where you all are fighting for the same dream and nobody's helping anybody get to it, right? We're all here clinging at each other and destroying each other. So,
Until we're not.
right, until we're not.
Hmm.
So at this point, I don't even realize that I'm having these spiritual awakenings, right? It's just happening to me. I mean, I'm uh, now realizing I pushed everybody away that was around me that was using me, right? I'd set my boundaries, and to me, I'm just doing it. I don't even know why I was doing it, right?
Right.
And I didn't do any of the 12-step stuff, which might have made it easier because a lot of this 12-step stuff teaches you have to ask people for forgiveness and say sorry and then rebuild your relationships, which I didn't. I just tore it all down, right? Uh, to the point where,
Self inquiry, the fourth step. These are all things that we can still apply in our life. I mean, I definitely appreciate the spiritual
right.
principles of the program.
Yeah, well, I
It,
definitely
yeah.
can appreciate it. And if I didn't have that ego back when I was in rehab, I probably would have asked for help, right? The fact was I still was at that process of I could do it myself. And I did end up doing it by myself, right? And I think that was part of my journey here is that I knew that I had to do it for myself. Um so I ended up walking from everything and uh lived without dating much for well over a year, which was a long time for me because I was used to bouncing relationship to relationship to relationship. Then I eventually started to do a dating app and went on to a dating app and ended up meeting Sue, who is my current wife. And we dated for a long time, and I still was going through uh, my self discovery. And Sue is a type of woman that never never had done things to the extent that I had, right? Where I was just a walking catastrophe, right? She was lived a simple, and she always called herself Simple Suey, right? She is a simple-minded woman that doesn't require a lot of drama in her life, right? Whereas when I was younger, I was addicted to drama. Like if it weren't
Well,
around me,
that comes, yeah,
I wasn't living, right? I was
it comes from trauma.
right,
And so, yeah, there's, you know, chemicals that are released in our brain due to drama because of
r-
the trauma that we've been through. So we seek that out. Not, we don't say it consciously, oh, I'm going to go look for drama, but we
right,
act it out to reinvent situations in our life because we feel alive,
right,
right? It makes you feel like you're a part of something, you're alive, and there something's happening in our life, and we don't. Well, now you probably appreciate your silence and your sitting still and
Mm-hmm.
your self-inquiry and so forth. So
Yeah,
I
now
get it. Yeah.
that didn't happen until after this even. So we were dating, and I still had a lot of trauma and baggage with me, and she couldn't understand how I allowed a woman to ever treat me this way and treat my kids that way, and how I could have ever been that big of a victim, which anybody in the right mind would wonder the same thing, right? She thought there was more to the story, right? So we broke up, I don't know, like a year into dating, and then spent some time apart, and we ended up getting back together, and then we moved in together. And this is when my spiritual awakening really started to kick in. This is when the 17th letter uh, started dropping,
Okay.
and I was following this, and because of my dyslexia, I think I was able to read into the drops more than other people could. Right, I could see patterns, and I could understand that something different was happening here. This wasn't
Oh,
just uh,
that's awesome.
this wasn't just noise, right? Most people don't realize this is that I actually voted for Obama the first go around. His second race, I did not vote. When uh, Trump ran, I did not vote. I did not, and it was shortly after Trump ran that I saw that he was actually fulfilling the promises that he made.
Mhm.
And Maryland is an extremely liberal area, and I ended up uh, finally getting tired of hearing everybody on Facebook talk about how bad he was and how he's a racist, and I was like, yeah, this is baloney. I said, then I started to challenge people, and I would start going, tell me how this is the case. I don't see it, and unless you can give me something other than what the mainstream media is parroting, you're wasting my time, right? I had 600 real life friends, right, that were from my hometown that were on my Facebook page. And next thing you know, I ended up down to zero. I literally deleted everybody that was on my Facebook account, and and ended up meeting people slowly through this process, right? Where they were also seeing something strange was going on with these, 17th letter uh, that were happening, right? And they were seeing patterns, and they also were saying, these things are different, right? We are learning something here that can't just be a coincidence, right?
So wait, can I ask you, what is it that you feel that what I'm curious to know, what was it that you were picking up that other people weren't able to see,
Well,
Zachary?
first off, it started out with the fact is that our president was actually doing what he was promising, right?
Mhm.
Um, Now it was more of a feeling that I would say than anything with Q. And this is before I didn't even realize that I knew how to feel energy, right? Like this was before that. Um, so I guess I should rewind. So Sue and I lived together, and I had my spiritual awakening where the 17th letter came out, and I'm learning all these things, and I'm up 22 hours a night researching and digging into things, and I'm going, whoa, this is crazier than I thought it was, right? I'd always known something strange about the 911 incident, right? Um, but this started to really cement that things were not what they appeared, right? And she thought I was losing it, right? Which was understandable because she's a simple woman that owns a large daycare, and that's what her day-to-day life is, right? She runs her business and does it very well.
Did you
And
have a Kundalini activation? Um,
but that happened later.
yeah.
So I uh was spending a lot of time associating with people in the movement, and 9 times out of 10 it was women, right? Because for some reason or other, that's our movement is mostly women, right? And I think that her insecurities were is why are you able to relate with other women better than you can me, right? Which is totally understandable. I get it, right? And I kept saying to her, well, all I know is I'm here with you, and this we're doing this together, right? And she, I guess, hit her breaking point one day and said she can't do this anymore. And I was like, this isn't right. Like, this is not right. We're not supposed to be breaking up. We're supposed to be doing this together. Somehow I just knew we were supposed to be doing something together. I don't know why. So she sent me packing, and I owned a commercial window installation company at the time where I actually ran a crew of guys and we were installing windows, and we traveled 20 some states within 9 months. And we were renovating apartment complexes, and from Florida all the way up to New Hampshire. And through that time, I lived in Airbnbs, and was giving into this thing of I'm just going to free fall and see what ends up happening with me, right? And when I left the house, I said I'm going to go out, and at this point, I need to figure out what's going on. Why am I pushing people away from me? Why am I seeing this happening? And I need to find myself. Either that, or I'm going to go kill myself, right? Like there's no way to live where I'm just living in Airbnbs. So over that next year, she dated another gentleman, and I dated another woman that was in the 17 movement also. And I moved to Florida, and while I was in Florida, befriended people along the way. One of them was a guy by the name of Jason Light. He's an amazing guy. I've met him at a restaurant in Sarasota, and I was having a conversation, and he walked up and he goes, "Hey, my name's Jason Light." And I'm like, "Jason Light?" And he goes, "Yeah, my middle name's Ray, Jason Ray Light." And he goes, "I'm a star seed." And I go, "What the hell is that?" And he said, "I'm a star seed. My wife's a star seed. We're twin flames, and we have a crystalline child." And I'm like, what does that even mean, right? Like, I'd never heard of that. And at the time, I had developed a humanitarian plan for the movement for the New World, and started to talk to him about that, and it aligned with a lot of what he was doing, which was he wanted to open up a drug rehab house, I believe is what it was. And I said, it's basically going down the lines of what I want to do. I said, I want to create a place that utilizes psychedelics that will help people have an awakening, and also help heal PTSD and so forth. And he goes, "Well, that's interesting." He goes, "I got some friends that they administer ayahuasca." And I'm like, I've seen about ayahuasca for years, and I've wanted to do it. I just never, could find it, right? Like I'd actually had plans back in the beginning of 2020 to fly down to Ecuador. I had a river guy that was going to take me up in the rivers into the jungles, where I was going to stay with a tribe for 6 months, and they were going to teach me to be a shaman. And following the 17 movement, I saw something was coming. I just could feel something coming, and I ended up going, "No, this is not the time to go out of the country." And I ended up going with my gut, and I stayed here and didn't do it. And Jason's like, "Well, my friends are in Florida, and you can go sit with them if you want." And I said, "All right, I'll do it." And it was during COVID. They actually weren't doing any ceremonies at the time because of COVID, but made an exception to have me come up. So went to their house and sat down 2 nights for ceremonies. And I don't know if people know what ayahuasca is. Ayahuasca is something that was originated in the jungles of Peru by the tribes. And they had found that if you take the leaf of one plant and the vine from another, the roots or the vine from another, and you boil them together for 30 hours or whatever the process is, it will create a powerful hallucinogenic. So the first night I sit down and I drink one serving, which is like an ounce and a half, and nothing happens. And he comes by and he goes, "How you doing?" I said, "I'm fine." He goes, "All right, well, here's another serving." Right. And I'm like, "All right, well, still don't feel anything." And they're like, "Oh, wow, man, we have a mountain here, basically. Like somebody with a huge ass ego, somebody that won't let go." Right. And I'm sitting there going, "What's that mean?" And he gives me a third dose. I take the third dose, nothing happens. And then he brings over a fourth one. And uh, his girlfriend was also helping administer. And she goes, "What the heck are you doing? You're not giving him that." And they end up taking it away from me. And I'm sitting there. And next thing I know, I purge, which is you end up throwing up. And when you throw up, it's literally you're purging an emotion, right? Or a trauma, whatever it is blocked within you, right? So whatever that block was, it was keeping me from letting go. Finally cleared, and everybody else had already come down, and I'm sitting here, going, I'm not ready to end, right? So he sends me to bed, and then I'm sitting there, and literally, Mother Ayahuasca is a spirit that comes out when you're doing the ceremony, and she comes up to me and she goes, "Do you want to see the Akashic records?" And I said, "Sure." And it was a beautiful thing. It was literally, I could ask a question and like a Google search, it would slide an answer in front of my face. And it was like a I don't even know, like a frame would just slide in front of my face. And I was like, wow. And I
A
sat there
hologram.
What's that?
Like a hologram?
Right.
Yeah.
And for hours, I was sitting there asking like deep questions, and I can't recall any of what I was asking, but I'm sure my subconscious is literally. And I remember going, "Man, everybody should do this. This is amazing." And at the end of it, all of a sudden, in red writing, and it was like a thunderous voice. It was like, "You got this. You got this. You got this," over and over and over and over. And it was like the biggest feeling of love that I'd ever heard in my life. Right, like somebody supported me,
I love
and
that.
I guess it was the first time I'd ever heard my spirit guides, right, or my higher self speaking to me. And so I ended up going to sleep, and then the next night we go out and we're in the living room, and we all set our intentions. And I said, I set my intentions to have Mother Ayahuasca kick my ass. And he turns to me and he's like, "Be careful what you wish for." And I said, "No." I said, "I want to learn it. I'm not here to do this 100 times. I want to do it right." So he's like, "I got this special brew that's very strong, and I'm going to give it to you." And he gives me an ounce and a half of it, and I was like, "All right, I'm going to go into this. And I'm just going to meditate." And I literally lay back, and as I'm laying back, I go poof, I'm gone. And I end up in a garden. Is all I can say. It was a garden, but it was this magical. It wasn't like here. It was man, magical colors with bright yellows, greens, uh, like gears that are twisting, and this whimsical music playing in the background, like harps, and it just felt amazing, right?
Wow.
And Mother Ayahuasca comes up to me and she goes, "Do you want to see the Akashic records?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And she goes, "No, do you want to see them all?" And I said, "Yeah, why wouldn't I want to see them all?" And she goes, "Okay." And next thing I know, information starts pouring into me, and it was beautiful. It was like a river, right? It was flowing. It was every feeling, memory, every anything was flowing into me, right? And then it starts to pick up speed, and it starts to pick up speed, and it starts to pick up speed. And before I know it, I'm like sitting on my mat, and I forced myself up off the mat, and I said, no, 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 no. Right. And it was so much that I actually saw in my vision, my mind twisted, sparked, and I thought I'd lost it. Right. And I guess it was what I would call a reset of my brain. Right. And it took all that programming that I had and it reset it. Right. So I, at the time, I didn't know what it was. It was the most terrifying experience of my life. I realized I wasn't actually here. I mean, through my life, I'd used mushrooms hundreds of times, right? Never had an experience like this, right? And probably because my ego was keeping me from ever having that experience. Um, so I sit up and literally, I don't even know how much time had passed, but it hadn't been long because everybody else was still sitting on their mat drinking their drink, right? And I had already had this journey, and I sat there and I'm fighting going to sleep, fighting going to sleep. Like I'm not going back there, right? So what it is DMT, and DMT is created when you're sleeping. So basically, what happens when you are doing ayahuasca, it puts you in a state of sleep, basically, where you're in between, and DMT is created when you die. So it's basically giving you a near-death experience, right? So you have that same feeling of when you cross over, right? So I was on the other side of this veil and realized, hey, I'm on the other side of this veil. This is too much, right? Like, send me back, send me back, send me back, right? Like, y'all are in my head and
I've
you're
never
trying to
done
steal me or
ayahuasca.
something.
Yeah.
What's that?
I've never done ayahuasca. I've done DMT. Actually, I did it here, and then I had military show up at my job to check on me. I knew
Really?
exactly what they were doing. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're scared you're going to break free.
Well, I have broken free, but
Yeah.
I've already broke programming. But I crossed. I I I had a near death, if you want to call it. I mean, I feel I died and came back for sure. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't near death. I crossed over and I was gifted my life back.
Right.
I had taken a bunch of medication. I just said, I'm done. There
Mm-hmm.
was no calling anybody. I wasn't looking for anybody to come save me. I was just tired,
Mm-hmm.
Zachary. And I just said, God, I'm laying down now. I don't know if I'm going to get up, but I'm laying down. I'm taking these pills. And I imagine like this hand coming through to, stop me. And it just, none of that happened.
Right.
We literally will be given exactly what it is that we're desiring. Of course, when we have a greater purpose, and everybody has a great purpose. So some people, some souls cross and they don't come back. Those of
Mm-hmm.
us that are gifted to be able to be here, we need to, I feel like, and it wasn't right away that my life turned around. It was many years later.
Right.
I've had several awakenings, but DMT, I wasn't crazy about it. I thought it was gonna, like you, I've done a lot of mushrooms, acid. I've done so much
Mm-hmm.
stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
most psychiatrists would deem me, insane, and I'm not.
Well, all of us probably are to a degree.
Yeah, yeah. But I've never tried ayahuasca, but go ahead. I'm listening. I
Yeah,
didn't.
so I mean, ayahuasca is used for a lot of people that have drug addictions,
Sure.
and they say that it cures people, and I 100% believe it does. Now, I'm not saying that ayahuasca is for everybody. Ayahuasca is serious business, right? I mean, when you do it, you are taken into the dark, right? And you're playing in the dark, so you're sort of tiptoeing the line while you're there, right? And if you're not careful, something, and you aren't doing it with people that administer it, and they're shaman or shaman-esque, right? They're similar to a shaman, but they can hold space for you, right?
Can I tell you something? There's so many people in Florida that I have, since I've moved here, that
Yeah.
claim shamans and.
Now these people are amazing.
No, I'm not saying
Yeah.
your people,
And
because
they're
I
not.
actually I did connect with some people that had a couple guys from Peru here that were offering, services. I'll just say that. I won't say much more on
Right.
camera, but anyways, but I have come across, I mean, I don't think I've ever been to a state before that has so much like witches and covenants and people that
Yeah.
claim to be, this
There's a
and
lot.
that or
There's a lot
whatever.
of strange stuff that happens in Florida. Like,
I'm telling you, there's a
yeah,
lot of reptilians here. I see them.
yeah. I'd say the state's split in half. It seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Anyway, I mean, I'm not saying it to be belittling at all.
no.
I'm just saying it's
Yeah,
just,
no, but I mean, these people, they've done 600 ceremonies, so they've
yeah,
done it.
that's amazing.
Yeah, and they actually ran the ayahuasca center up in Orlando. I can't remember the Soul Quest. So they actually are very, very knowledgeable, right? And he actually brews it, so you know where it's coming from.
I have a recipe for it. I have
Yeah,
people that
it's not something I recommend anybody do without
Oh, I wouldn't do it
without somebody holding the
absolutely
space
not.
for you, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
when you're there and you're not careful, the dark entities can attach to you, right? And probably keep you, right?
Well, they're not keeping me. I've already been.
No, not you. So I
And not you either.
yeah,
But
all of a
anyway.
sudden I sit up and everybody's sitting there and I'm like, what in the world just happened, right? And I'm looking around and then I see another girl. She starts panicking and yelling, right? And I'm like, oh my God, this is what they do. They get you to take this ayahuasca and then they're all in your mind and they're trying to take you to the other side
I
or
can
something.
tell you my story. You're making
Right?
me laugh now.
Yeah, and in my mind, I feel like they're like trying to take me, right? And I'm like, no, I'm not closing my eyes. I'm not closing my eyes. I'm not closing my eyes. I'm gonna sit here and it was like a battle to keep my eyes open. And next thing I know, I realized I'm like hiding underneath my blanket, and I realized that was me as a kid. When I
I'm
was,
sorry. That was what?
it was me. It was me as a child, right?
Oh, I see. Okay.
And when I was a child, when I was like 5 years old, I was able to reach the Akashic records, and I'd forgotten, right? And I was able to reach this place and had no clue what I was doing, right? I hadn't been trained. Nobody told me that this is what's going on, right? So I would get to this place and it would scare me to death. And then I would sit in my bed and do that thing where I'm keeping my eyes open, right? Because I don't want to go to this place. I don't know what it is, right? Am I going to disappear? Is somebody going to take me? And I
Do you think
realized
that
that,
you were have you ever been contacted or abducted? I mean,
yeah, when I was 5, uh, that was another story, and I didn't realize that until I was watching Above Majestic, I think it was, and I had the same experience that they had discussed. And when I was 5 years old, I had woken up and I walked across my bedroom, and it was pitch black upstairs. I got to the top of my steps and looked down. It was like bright light downstairs, and I was like, "What's that?" And I turned back around. I looked, and I'm like, "It's dark up here, but it's light downstairs." And the next thing I know, I had the urge to jump, and I jumped, and I floated down the steps like this.
yeah.
And I got to the bottom of the steps, and next thing I know, I woke up back in my bed. And I was a 5-year-old kid, and I was like, "What the heck was that?" Right? Like that wasn't just a
Well, you
dream.
probably left the body.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I left my body, but so then I'm watching Above Majestic, and he said that he's heard 200, hundreds of people say that they had the same experience where they get to the top of a flight of steps and they jump. And he said he did the same thing, but he flew flat down the steps.
So so are you saying? So did you like?
Physically,
I'm sorry.
physically, he flew level to the ground,
Right.
right?
So okay.
And I flew like face first down the steps like this, right? And he said,
Probably what I'm trying to say to you is I'm not saying that I'm correct, but I've stepped out of my body, walked around my apartment and so forth.
yeah.
So
I mean, I've done that hundreds of times, and that's what I thought too, until I saw him say this. And he said it was actually when people have been abducted.
Okay. All right.
And which makes sense because when I was that same age, I remember looking in the mirror and I would stare at myself in the mirror so long to the point that I would feel like I was about to disappear. I used to have thoughts: are my parents my parents? Are they real? Are they aliens? Am I an alien? right?
I get it. Yes.
And I'm like, this doesn't, something's not right here. And I
Yeah.
never in my whole life it's ever really felt connected to too many people, right? Like I've been friends with everybody, but I've never been
I get it.
close, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there and I realize that myself as my kid, as a kid in my bed after having this experience and how terrified I was and how nobody had told me what was going on, right? And I felt so badly for my inner child, right?
Oh,
And it was like I ended up basically forgiving myself, loving myself, and realizing that I was, just a small kid that was scared, right? But that
wow.
it impacted my life throughout the whole life, right?
Mhm.
Because I was different and I didn't understand it, and that's why I was fighting for other kids and so angry, right? And I'm sitting there and I sit up and I start feeling more confident about my situation, and I put a blanket over my head for some reason because it was freezing, and all of a sudden I had this feeling that I was like an ancient Indian warrior, and it must have been a past life coming out of me. And I was this ancient Indian warrior, and I never felt more empowered in my life. Right? It was like I was being reborn again. Right? I'd gone from where my mind twisted, and I lost all my ego and everything, and I all of a sudden met myself as a young kid. Now I'm growing into this ancient Indian warrior, and I felt empowered and loved, and I've never felt the sense of love that I felt at that time, right? And I remember looking over, and I'm still not quite sure who it was, but in my mind, it was Shiva was sitting up against the wall, leaning against the wall with this long flowing outfit on that's like blowing in the wind. And I look over and I'm like, "Hey, what's up, man?" And it was like I knew him closely, right?
Mhm.
And it was like I was joking around. And I waved at him, and and he just smiled at me, and I laid back down on my mat, and then I had the sense of peace come upon me,
Why do
right?
you think it was Shiva?
It was somebody that was Hindu. That's all I know, right?
Okay. I'm not. I'm
And it
just.
was more of a feeling than anything, right? I don't know. I mean, it could be somebody else. I don't know, but it was a feeling that I understood and knew, right? So I ended up going to sleep, and then you know, Mother Ayahuasca stays with you for a long time. The lessons come for months and months, maybe years, whatever, right? So they're like, you're going to go home and you're going to have to integrate back into life. And I went back to my house, and for the first week, I slept with the lights on. It was that,
Wow.
yeah. I mean, that was that impactful to me. Like it was like, holy shit! Like being in the dark is legit, right? And I
Mhm.
knew there was something much more than what was happening here, right? Because I saw entities, I felt entities, and I felt how they're creeping around there, right? And you're in a place that's, mean, I would say ayahuasca takes you to an in between world, right? Where you can go into the dark to find the light, right? Some people that aren't spiritually strong could go into that dark and get stuck there, right?
Can I
So,
ask you a question? Because and I'm not rushing. We're
yeah,
now just passing the first hour, and I definitely want to talk more about like and I appreciate everything you've
yeah,
shared
go
so
ahead.
far,
That's all right.
Zachary. I appreciate you. No, you've been very forthright with everyone and
Hmm.
sharing and being, very genuine and authentic, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
That's yeah.
That's why we're here, right?
So you had mentioned to me, if it's okay with you, that you are a starseed. Do you mind
Right.
sharing any information on that? Is there anything that
Yeah, I mean, the problem is everything I have to tell you is another show, right? Like, and that's
well, I
not
mean, we can
ego.
do a part two if you're comfortable.
I mean, I'll
I
do a
mean,
part two if you want to. That'd be fine
sure.
with me. Because I mean, my real awakening happened a week after I left that ayahuasca ceremony, and that's when I lived down in I was down in Port Charlotte, and I was laying in my bed one day, and I turned myself over to God. And I told God, I said, I'm your vessel to use. And I was never a religious guy, right? At all. Like I believe something did something, right? But I never put a lot of thought to it. And I turned him over and I said, all I ask you to do is take care of my children and my family, right? So I free fell into it, and I was going on a road trip to go to South Dakota to the 4th of July for a 17 function that was happening up there. And I made it out to Oklahoma with my girlfriend at the time. And God put me on my course when I was out there. He separated us two when we were in Oklahoma, and I was dropped off at the airport in Dallas and had no clue where I was going, and I had $5,000 to my name, and I rented a car at the airport and I drove 22 hours back to my house in Port Charlotte. I loaded my truck up and drove another 9 hours to Savannah, Georgia before I stopped. I was up for 36 hours driving straight. God was even doing it. Except that my kids lived in Maryland, and God sent me back to Maryland. And I was in Maryland in 2 days. I drove 2,400 miles, and I ended up back in a hotel during COVID lockdown. And it was quite different in Maryland than it was in Florida. It was way locked down. And I was like, what did I come here for?
My whole thing, I have my, so I moved here. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, and I moved here in 2018. I lived in downtown Silver Spring, right on the line of DC and Maryland on East-West Highway.
Yeah, that's not far from where we were.
Yeah, and I grew up in Wheaton, and then I dated somebody that was from Baltimore that I was targeted. I believe he was a he was there to basically take my energy from me. I had a Kundalini activation, and through sex magic, this happens, and it's a whole deep story I don't want to get into.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind sharing about it, and one day I will, maybe, but I'm kind of past all that stuff. I'm really just.
It helps other people, though.
Yeah, and again, I'll share it if I know that it brings,
Well, a lot of people don't know what a Kundalini experience is, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
A lot of people don't even know what that is, right?
Well, it's energy that is coiled at the bottom of your spine, and through sex, you can either raise your energy up through yoga practices and have a Kundalini activation or experience, or you can have a full-blown Kundalini activation, which is what I had, and it opened all my chakras up, my crown chakra. I literally was manifesting out of thought. If I had a thought, I would create the scenario and it would manifest. I was getting downloads. I was told that they're killing and raping my children, and I didn't really understand at that time what that meant. And then I was pushed into my mission. I know what my mission was, and I know that my mission, and I'm that I have one of the most difficult ones here on this planet. But and I don't say that lightly or grandiose at all. I've been humbled by all of it. But I, at the same time, can't walk around with my tail between my legs either. I have to stand up, and we have to, stand in our authority as divine beings, and here to do what we can to be in service however we can. And this is one of the ways that I do it. And then there are things that I don't talk about, that I do my best to help people. And I'm still becoming. We never arrive. And I always say that because I think, I mean, but I think that's fantastic, Zachary. So anyway, so Maryland, so you went back, your kids.
So I get back to Maryland, and my relationship is still terminal at best with my children, right? I had gone through a relationship with my ex that had destroyed their trust in me. I'd been an addict. Their mother hadn't spun me as a great father, which I get all of it. Like, And God literally delivered me back to Maryland to do what I guess the 12-step program makes you do, right? And that was to face my darkest moments, right? And I came back with the understanding that I was going to do whatever it took to fix it with my kids, right? And I had a tent and I was prepared to sleep in the woods, honestly.
I get it.
And I stayed in a hotel for a week, and literally it was like I was going through a cleansing period where I was taking 6 or 7 baths a day. And it was a weird experience. And I reached out to Sue, and she came to say hi, and she had just broken up with her boyfriend that ended up being a similar energy as my ex-wife, and it all made perfect sense, right? She had to meet a guy that wanted to destroy her as badly as my ex did, and
She could.
she could understand what I was going through, right? And so she came over, and the second we touched, it was not even a romantic thing, right? And she says it to today, is that the second we touched, I healed her. And
That's lovely.
yeah, and I, you know, was like, there's no way, right? Like, there's no way that, like, she hasn't followed all this, 17 stuff, right? And she's awakened, right? So we dated, and I eventually moved back in, and I questioned her one day, and I said, "How is it that you never have done any of this research, but you're awake now? Like, it doesn't make sense. I'm waiting
Well,
for."
we definitely activate each other. I don't mean
Yeah,
to interrupt you, but
yeah,
yes,
and
for sure.
that was the first time that I realized what I had done, right? And she literally had an awakening just by my self healing, right? And
That's fantastic.
yeah, so like for a long time, I was like, man, she's got to be pretending. But how long can you pretend like this for, right? And then I said, well, how is it that you don't need to do all this research, because I trust in you enough to take me to where I need to be, right? And that made so much sense, right? And it was a beautiful thing. Like, she had actually submitted to me enough that I could lead, right?
Hmm.
And that's what the divine feminine masculine qualities are, is that I'm not looking to be a leader per se, right? But as a man, you have a tendency to want to protect and guide, right? And this has been lost in the societies, that people, don't understand that balancing, right? I mean, that balancing also happens within each of us, right? We all have a divine masculine and feminine energy in us that you want to coil it, right? And balance it, right? So that you aren't operating from a hurt place, you aren't operating at a too masculine of a place, you aren't trying to conquer people, right? You're here to
Well,
win the love of
masculine is
somebody.
external and feminine is internal. So feminine is magnetic and
Right.
masculine is electric. So um yeah, when you balance it, you will operate from whichever or whichever I guess if you want to use the word pole, I wouldn't even know how to say that, but you as you evolve and your consciousness expands and your awareness, you start to be you have feelers. It's like feelers that you're able to sense when you need to fall back or when you need to go
Hmm.
forward.
Hmm.
And lovely that she trusts in you, because I was talking to somebody about this the other day about when we hear truth, when you operate from the frequency of truth, when you hear it, you know it. You
Hmm.
don't believe it. It's a knowingness. It's a
Right.
knowingness that you say, okay, this feels right.
Right.
I, you know, and when everything comes together, it's just it's an intuitive knowingness. And if
Hmm.
you have to question something, then I would say that doesn't mean that it's not true, but maybe there's more further
Right.
but that's lovely,
Yeah.
Zachary.
So I
That's
mean, the
yeah.
spiritual awakening for me was I literally let go. Right. I stopped trying to make all the decisions in my life. because
Yeah.
every decision I ever made was
Called
a
surrendering.
decision for surrendering. And it was, I learned a lesson from every mistake that I made,
Sure.
right? And I made a
Yeah.
lot of them. I was a professional mistake maker, right?
But isn't that the way we gain
Yeah,
knowledge
that's how
and
you gain.
wisdom?
But yeah, and it's also what's got me to where I am now is that I can relate with almost anybody that I speak to, right? Because
Sure.
I see the pain in everybody because it's been in me, right? So I can also help people find their way out of that pain. Um, so submitting to that, and literally everything that I do is guided by, my insides, right? Like, and even if it feels uncomfortable, I still do it, right? Like this show, like I'm not a big podcast guy, right? Like I like my privacy, and I don't really like to have a schedule, right?
Or
So
a lot of attention on you. I get it.
yeah,
What sign are you, if you don't mind me asking?
Aries,
Okay, so you're a leader.
right?
That's what an Aries is.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing. I
So
mean, that's my north node. So in this lifetime, so your north node is what your soul is
right,
traveling to become. Your south node is what you were in a past life. I would definitely, if I were you, I would maybe check out your birth chart, and it will give you even more information
right.
to be able
I
to.
haven't looked at it. I've just never really spent a lot of time. Like a lot of what I do is I just follow the guidance that's inside of me, and it shows me everything I need, right? Like you can spend a lot of, and that's one thing I learned doing ayahuasca was I'd spent so much time researching and digging and questioning, and that I was driving myself insane. I was up 20 hours a night or a day, and when Mother Ayahuasca showed me the Akashic records and all of them, I said I'm okay not knowing it all. Right? It was too much, and I'm okay. I'm okay just not knowing everything. Right?
Yeah.
And it will happen when it needs to happen. And that was that submission
Well,
to
that's an important statement you just made,
right,
because I know other people, and I'll speak just from my own experience. I wanted to know it all.
right,
I wanted answers. I
right,
wanted to know why I was experiencing what I was, why I was being targeted, why military was jumping out taking pictures of me, why I was being abducted, why all of this stuff. I wanted answers.
right,
And now I have surrendered to knowing that what I need to know I will know, and I will intuitively be able to pull up what's necessary in any given time
right,
if it's needed for me to be able
right.
to
So
navigate through this.
I know we're running out of time here. So
Yeah.
the to go full circle with this is actually pretty interesting that we're sitting here having this conversation. Is that one day we woke up and in our kitchen we heard a bang, and we go out there and our cat has a sparrow pinned up against the inside of our bay window, and uh, I'll tell you something and I'll probably say something I haven't told many people, but my DNA goes back to Zeus.
Okay.
So that's my energies are coming from, and that's what I feel flowing through me, right? So we go out and
And I believe you.
yeah, and I take a
I want you
picture
to know
of
that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I take a picture of Sue. She's taking a towel and she wraps the bird up and she takes the bird and lets it out the back door. And I posted it on Facebook and and didn't think anything of it. And I go out into the yard, and this was last year in June, I guess it was. And I had already planned. We were planning on coming down to Florida where we are now, and
And
we were
I'll be coming to meet you guys
yeah
this
yeah.
weekend.
So
And we definitely have to talk about that before we end the show. So go ahead.
yeah, so we were having a gathering. We had said, let's have, we're going to be down there for the month. Let's, just see. Since I lived in Florida, maybe a few people come meet us at the beach. So we made a post and said, anybody want to meet up for a day on the beach? And it ended up becoming something way more than I expected. Right? We ended up. This
I
is
love
during
it.
COVID. Nobody was flying, so people literally drove 3 days to show up, and we ended up having about 100 people, I'd say 80 to 100 people.
Mhm.
And this is, people were falling sick. I mean, a lot of people didn't show up because they got sick. They,
Yeah.
so rewinding, the bird was in the kitchen. I go outside and I'm cutting the grass. We have a fairly big lawn, and I'm on the lawnmower and I black out in a meditation, and I see Sue and I getting married on the beach. And I see who's
So wait a
married.
minute, hold on. You were meditating on the lawnmower?
I mean, that just happens, that's like when I get into that, where I don't have to think
I'm not
mode.
laughing. I think it's fantastic. I'm
Yeah,
just
I mean, it
like,
just
yeah,
happened, and
yeah,
it was so clear, and I saw myself getting married on the beach, and I saw that it was the woman and the guy that did the ayahuasca ceremony. They've never
Oh
done
wow.
they've never done a ceremony ever, right?
Mhm.
So I like black out and I go running in. We have a 80 kid daycare attached to our house with 80
Mhm.
kids that she runs, and she has her office, and I go running into her office and I go, I don't know what just happened, but I think we're supposed to be getting married. And she goes, is this a proposal? And I'm like, no, I don't know what this is. We'll talk about it later, right? So I go back in the house
I love
and
it.
yeah, go back
Oh
in the
boy.
house and I look up on Facebook, and Facebook, I see my post about the bird. And somebody goes, well, you should probably look into the spiritual meaning of that. And I'm like,
Yes.
all right. So I look it up, and it says that a sparrow found in your home is a sign of good blessings, and that Aphrodite, who is Zeus's daughter, leaves a sparrow in your house, and that good fortune will be following, that a wedding will soon happen.
Oh, I love that, Zachary. I love
Yeah. So
that.
I end up,
I get excited with stuff like this.
yeah. So we got,
I'll tell you
I'm like,
when you're finished, I'll share a little something. Go ahead.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm like all excited, and I'm like, this is crazy. Like, there's no way this is all happening, right? And this is how my life has been playing out for a long time. Everything showed to me that dramatically, right?
Yes.
And I'm like, all right, so I think we're supposed to get married, Sue. Like, and the 7/17 is like our celebration. That's like our So we ended up flying our kids down.
7/17.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
7
Right.
months and 17th days when
Yeah,
Noah's
that's right.
Ark
Right.
landed.
So, and the event is on the 14th or
16th
15th.
this year. 16th is
15th
15th and 16th.
yeah.
So
Hey, Katie, did you put that flyer up where people could see the flyer for Zachary's event? I don't know. She might not be at. I'm sorry. She might not be at the desk. I'm sorry. Did you put it up, Katie? Oh, okay. I didn't know. I can't see it on this screen. So
okay.
awesome. Thank you.
And so I remember reaching out to the couple that did the ayahuasca ceremony, and it was like it all hinged on this moment. It was like I was asking them. It was like I was asking them to marry me too, right?
Mm.
Because I saw it so clearly that they were the ones doing it, and if they had said no, then my vision wasn't right.
Right.
So I asked them, and they said absolutely, right? So they ended up doing an amazing ceremony last year on the 14th, which is 7/14/21, which is 7 plus
It was
7 plus
actually y'all's
7.
anniversary a year later.
Yeah.
So the 15th and 16th. So Thursday would be the 14th.
Yeah. So
I got an air. I was fortunate enough to get an Airbnb 20 minutes from where the location is, where
that's
the
cool.
event is, and I encourage everybody that is either listening to the live or that will be listening either on Conscious Heart Solutions channel or Soma Fusion Media to definitely check out the flyer. And if you're in the area or you feel like going on a road trip, come and join us.
Now here's a
It will be
cool.
my first time.
Yeah,
I'm very
here's a
excited.
cool wraparound with all this. Is that Friday night? I told you about Jason Ray Light. He's the one that's going to be doing the yoga and meditation. So it's literally my journey is going to go full circle. He's going to do Friday night, and then Saturday night, the woman that married us will be doing the meditation again this year. And last year's meditation was amazing. We were out on the beach, and had a full sunset, and she did an amazing job. It was,
I'm so excited to meet
yeah,
you guys and
it
meet.
was
There's not
awesome.
much going on here in Jacksonville, Zachary. So when I live alone. I don't have children. I'm not involved with anybody. And my heart, I want more connection for
Yeah, the
sure.
West Coast
Uh,
is different than the East Coast of Florida, surprisingly.
yeah.
It seems it's feels like it's more my tribe, and I would imagine your tribe if we're having this conversation, right?
You mean in
On the West
California,
Coast.
West
Yeah.
Coast? Oh, like Arizona and stuff?
No, West Coast of Florida.
I see. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's not a whole. I mean, there's people that I've met here that I don't necessarily,
Yeah.
there's a lot of reptilians in this area, and don't misunderstand me. I don't have any issues with reptilians. I did at one time because I fell under that
Well, they teach you,
nonsense of,
right? They're
yeah.
here
I
to
mean,
teach you.
you have good, if you want to use the word, even the words or the dialogue of good, bad, right, wrong. I mean, all different star tribes have had their good and bad.
Hmm.
We all, so from galactic history down here to the earth, we're here to come back together as a human family. That's what I say.
Absolutely, and we're not
And
doing a very good job of it so
we're
far.
going, well, those that are ready are.
Yeah, I mean,
I
when
mean,
we're
look what
all,
you're doing. You're doing amazing.
yeah, we're
You're having,
all,
yeah.
we're a lot of us are getting frustrated, right? Because we want things to happen in our time, and it's just not going to happen that way. We're learning a huge lesson in faith at this point, right? We're learning that we are not in control of this, right? We
No.
are to a degree, right? If we all could just come together and decide that we're done, we'd be done, right?
Well, there's a lot of other countries that are doing a lot of things. I mean, we both know this is
Yeah.
a shout out to Terry Wade and Tone
Yeah.
Mellard and
I try to
there's a
get
lot of
Tone out
people that
here.
you and I are connected to that I didn't, until we became Facebook friends, I realized that we're connected with some of the same people, and people
Yeah.
are doing the best they can to
Oh,
bring
for sure.
awareness and so forth. But I'm at the point where that's why I named this show, and I started this in 2019, and I only have 300 subscribers.
Right.
Okay, which is mind blowing.
Right.
I know that
Oh, they're
for
blocking you.
whatever reason, I'm I'm sorry.
They're blocking you.
Yeah. And
That's,
it's okay. And I'm not,
yeah,
because I know if I reach one heart, I've served my purpose.
absolutely.
And by the way, those that will be listening, please do subscribe. Share if you like the content, you like the information, you find it to be helpful, share it out. I'm not looking, I'm not one of these people that are looking to make a living off YouTube. I
No.
simply want to share a message, and that is of joy, abundance, and goodwill for all. We have to come together and choose that. And if
Right.
we do it right here, right now, we don't wait till things change out there. We live it. We walk and be examples of it. And by
And
doing that, we more people will see that. And listen, Zachary, I think all of us want just to have freedom in our life, to be able to create as we please, to be able to have joy in our life, not have to work 40, 50, 60
right.
hours just to have, but really, if you think about it, I mean, I don't have a whole lot, and I'm a really happy person.
I'm
I have
happier with nothing than I was with everything,
right.
right?
So my point
Yeah.
is, it's like the big houses, fancy cars. I like nice things.
Yeah.
I would not be being honest if I said I didn't, but it's not where my value comes from. And it's not what I would like to have some land and grow some food and have some neighbors that I can,
I believe
co-create with.
I
Yeah.
believe we're all entitled to live very nice lives, right? With
Yes.
nice things. Like there's no reason why any of us should be in lack. Like that's lack is a man-made or reptilian-made
Well, it
concept, right?
depends on what abundance means to you. I
Right.
mean, I feel abundant every day. I wake up and I open those curtains,
Right.
and I live in a small one-bedroom apartment. I'm very fortunate. I just started a cleaning company, and I just started it. So
Right.
I get jobs here or there, but nothing, I just put my best foot forward. That's it. And I
When
do
I
ionic detoxes. I remove toxins from people's bodies.
and
Um,
I didn't follow any 12-step program, but one thing I did every day was make sure that the next day I did something a little better than the previous, right? And and my learning process has gotten me to where I am now, where literally every day I just want to be better than I was yesterday, right? I
Can I
want to
ask you, how do you feel about CBD?
CBD. I have no problem with CBD or
Okay,
THC.
okay,
That's medicine. That's not a
okay,
drug, right? And just like anything, though, you can abuse it, right?
sure.
Like I think man-made drugs are different, right? Like alcohol is an awful thing that was designed to destroy families.
Hmm.
It allows demons to latch on to people and literally use their vessel as their own, right? Much like heroin or any of it, right? Like anything that has to be manufactured is a drug. Uh,
Well,
God
all
put,
of it comes from natural alcohol is the Arabic word. It means to sedate. And actually the Anunnaki are the ones that brought alcohol to this. They're the ones
yeah,
that created food.
whatever.
Uh,
I think that alcohol destroys too many families,
oh, I
and
don't I don't care for it either. You're not by
yeah,
yourself. I
yeah.
would much I do smoke CBD occasionally, but not often. And I
I mean, I
do
use
medicinal
THC,
yeah, yeah.
and I think that it's THC if you utilize it as a tool is a beautiful thing, right?
Well, they kept it illegal for a long time, Zachary, because it cuts out the mind control. When you smoke
Yeah.
pot, you're not the
It
mind
also helps you
control.
meditate and connect, right?
Yes, that's right. So,
So, and
but
then obviously ayahuasca is a plant medicine. Like plant medicines to me are different, right? They like people. You don't go do ayahuasca for fun, right? Like,
no.
and if you
Well,
are,
I decided probably about 3 or 4 months ago. I can't remember. I don't know. I got some mushrooms from somebody, and I decided to have an experience by myself. Now it was more of a body, a physical thing than it was like I didn't really get, I've
mhm,
left the body. I don't really need drugs to be able to do what I do.
right,
But I just figured, okay, because I'm always thinking, and this is another trap that we always think that there's more to heal,
right,
right? At what point do you say, okay,
done being a
I'm
victim,
healed. Now I'm gonna heal my body, but
right,
emotionally, mentally, spiritually, it's like, no, we don't ever arrive. If something triggers you, sit with it and take the time to work through that and let it go. And the more often you do that, the less it will show up because you've now accepted whatever it is and so forth. And for a long time, I mean, I was really caught up with, why things happen to me. And my, it's taken me, I had a lot of karma to work through. I'll just say that a
yeah, I
whole
do
lot.
too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it's okay. Now looking back, I'm like, I wouldn't change any of it because I just see life in a whole different way now. And the things that I used to value before comparison to now are much different. I
Hmm.
always kind of had the same core values. Like I care about people deeply. I'm a Leo sun, and I was born on a full moon in Aquarius,
Right,
and I'm a Aquarius rising. So while I'm a Leo, which is a masculine sign, by the
hmm,
way, um, the Aquarius, I'm in my head a lot. I'm in the ethers a lot, and I have to
right.
ground myself and because I want to figure out things. When something doesn't make sense to me,
That's all of us, I think,
yeah,
right?
if it nudges at me, I want to know, yeah. But I've learned to surrender more and say, okay, it'll come if I'm meant to know it, it will come. I get ringing in my ears, I get downloads,
Yeah, we'll get it
whatever.
all before
Yeah,
it's over, right? And that's one thing people have to realize. The Great Awakening is not a political thing, right? This is a spiritual, biblical phenomenon that's happening where we are all learning that we are uh, way more powerful than what we have been led to believe, right?
that's
We
correct.
are not victims, and once
No,
we
we're
all
not.
realize that, we're going to realize how unimportant and how unpowerful these people that are trying to hold us down
Well,
really
I'm
are,
just
right?
wondering what are we in America gonna say? Because I've listened to a lot. No, I stopped like what I had shared with you yesterday when I sent a message to you that I don't. there are certain people that I listen to, and I even, I use I dowels, and I get clear yes and no answers. And
Right.
when I don't get a clear yes or no answer, it's not meant for me to know at the time, where there's no concrete answer for it.
Right.
But it does help me. I do get, clarity, and I'm able to pick up information, and or at least get, if it's a, if what's being shared is
Right.
true or not.
Right.
But my point is, so many people, there's so many just uh information agents out there. There's a lot of confusion. Everybody thinks they know, everybody wants to be the one, and I just say I don't need to be the one. I can
Well,
fall back
the
and
thing
just,
I realized is that the only person that I trust is my highest self, right?
that's right.
Right? You call that God, or you call it your highest self, or you call it whoever it is, right? That's once you get that relationship, I don't search for anybody else's answers, right? I look at people around me, and they're providing me data, right, that I keep in my back pocket, so that when I have information that's downloaded, I can go, all right, well, this person over here might have that answer, right? And then I can confirm.
Sure. Yeah.
Then I confirm that answer. And one thing that I'm here for is to connect people, right? That's part of my job is a
Do you
connector.
mind sharing what star family are you connected with?
Arcturian.
Okay. And Arcturians are huge
But
fans
and that's
information.
another construct, right? Like I think we go back further than that, right? I think that that's a way for us to realize that we're not here from here, right? But we go back farther than that, right?
Oh, I believe that too.
I think we've
I
all
mean,
been
well,
multi-star seeds, right?
yeah. My soul source started out in Lemuria.
Right,
I went from Lemuria to Pleiades. I'm
right,
considered a Pleiadian, half Pleiadian, half Lemurian.
right,
But I hold Magdalene DNA, and I'm one of 9 on the planet.
right.
But there's one Eve, and I'll just say that.
One
And
what?
the word, there's one Eve.
Right. Well, that's who
Eve,
we're waiting for, right?
Eve, what? You're
Is that
waiting
who
for
we're waiting
Eve?
for?
Are we waiting for Eve? Where did that come from?
Well,
Everybody's on the planet, Zachary. We're
what's
all
that?
here.
Yeah.
Everybody's here. You're here. I'm here. We're all here. And
Right.
we're coming together. And
Right.
we're going to wake up to each other and
Right.
realize who each other are in a big way.
Right. Well, we're
Everybody's
close.
here. And I won't go into that because I'm, but I'm not here to convince anybody. I know
Right.
what I know.
Yeah, I know
Sure.
what I know, and
Yeah.
I know what you
So,
know too.
and it's okay. The whole, I love it. I can't wait to come and hang out with you guys.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't talk about a lot of that because that could freak some people out, right? And it's a lot more than a lot of people on my page are ready to understand, right? And I treat my page in a way that anybody that comes to visit might learn something, right? And do it in a fashion that is undivisive, because everything we see nowadays is divisive. And that kind of goes back to, you know, having a label placed on you, right? And you say, you asked me for a bio, right? And to me, that having a bio made me uncomfortable because I don't consider myself anything different than you or
Well, the bio helps, and I didn't even use it.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I
right,
get it.
I allowed
And
you to
I'm
share
not
with
picking on
people.
you about it. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that, like, I think that we have to get to a point where we realize that we are just one, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And we're all going to the same direction. We just got to stop fighting, right?
But the beauty of it is there's contrast.
Right.
I love that you're Zachary and I'm Ida.
Right.
I love that we can come together and help each other expand our consciousness even more, and that we have different perspectives, and
Right.
that we don't have to agree with everything, but that we can have a common goal, and that is for the betterment of humankind, right? We don't have to agree with everything. I don't practice religion. I consider myself to be a mystic. I live a mystical life. I commune with the gods.
Right.
And I do. And I don't say that grandiose. You do, we all do. At some level, either we're aware of it or we're not. I don't believe in religion. I think there's truth in all of them, but I also know from my own perspective that we've had more wars, more discontent, more trauma behind religious dogma. So
Hmm.
I'm not a fan of religion, but I respect people's choices. You
Yep.
know, the way I show honor and respect or homage or worship, if you want to even say even worship, like we can go on etymology of words and go
Right.
deep the Bible and Babel and the whole bit. Like I don't even do that anymore because I've gone down those roads, those rabbit holes so many times. And it's like, there's nothing of value there anymore. Once you know, you're like, okay, it's a play with words. Everything is magic, spelling.
Hmm.
When you speak, you are casting spells. When you write, right?
Yeah.
So I say you're either a life giver or a life taker. You get to choose which one. And we're
Yep.
not always life givers. Sometimes, we could have a two-edged sword.
Yep.
The goal is to step forward and to encourage others, for everybody to come together and choose when we say even, and I don't know that I'm somebody that buys into the unconditional love thing either. We have um a common desire. Everybody wants to be loved and to extend love. Some people don't choose to extend love, but that uh, you know, there's different ways of showing that. Just
Yeah.
being kind, holding a door open for somebody, buying somebody a cup of coffee, giving them a place to rest their head for the night. It's
Being
not always
brutally honest with somebody is
or
also
be brutal. That's right.
because
And
and Sue and I were talking about this the other day, and a lot of the problem that we have in this world is that people are tiptoeing around the truth with each other, right?
yeah,
Instead of going, you have a serious issue that needs
well,
to be
everybody wants
addressed.
to be like Zachary,
Yeah.
and we're more worried. I'd rather tell you like it, because I'm a person that tells it like it is for
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
Like I have a great deal of softness and compassion, but after I've talked with you about the same thing a couple times, I can get pretty direct,
Right.
because I feel like now my time is being wasted. If you're
Hmm.
not willing to change, I can't change you. People have to change,
Absolutely.
not meaning you, a person.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you have to want it. It's
Very
not
hard to
something.
offend me, even if you want
Yeah,
to try.
well, I don't want to offend you. I think you're awesome. And I can't wait to meet your wife. And I will be
Yeah.
driving there and hanging out. I'll be bugging y'all because
Yeah.
I'm by myself. So I don't
Yeah.
really know.
There's
Maybe
there's
you'll
a lot of
introduce
good
me.
people coming this year, different
Yeah.
than last year, which is cool. Some people, aren't going to be able to make it because of gas prices and whatever. But whoever's here is meant to be here, and it looks like it's going to be a good crowd of really cool people, right?
Yeah.
Um, I know that Dylan Monroe's coming, the guy that did the 17 map. He's coming, so
Oh, wow.
he's got a lot of insight.
Yeah.
Rumors are that Ireland Clark and Michael are coming. Do you know Michael from Our Everyday Lives? He's like the 144,000 channel.
Oh, yeah, I see. He does. I get
Yeah,
notifications.
they may be coming. I know that they were just doing an event in Jacksonville yesterday. I think they did
I
a
didn't
truth
hear of
truth
anything. Yeah.
truth event there. So
Mm.
I mean, it's a cool group of people coming. Hopefully they'll show up. But whoever's here is meant to be here, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
No pressure. And I design it in a way that it's not going to cost anybody money. It's so
So
as long as you
is it at a park? Is that where?
no, it's at the beach.
I know, but what is the name? Because I kept getting.
Indian tiki gardens,
Yeah,
which
that's
are
what. Yeah,
yeah.
something
It's just a
garden.
park. There's a parking lot there, and you walk straight across the street and walk out on the beach in Indian Shores. Indian Shores is an amazing place. It's all old Indian burial grounds here, and one of my buddies who lives here, he's into all of that stuff, and he said that they found giants here that
So,
they
are you
hid.
familiar with Michael Lee Hill?
I've heard the name, but no.
You should. I'll send you the interview I did with him, and if you want to watch it, if you didn't.
Yeah. So he's actually
Well,
he's
he's
a
part of.
cool guy. He's coming,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
he actually is looking for somebody to invest in a movie that he wants to shoot in regards to some of the archaeology of Florida, which is pretty interesting, right?
Well, maybe we need to introduce him to Michael Lee Hill. So Michael Lee Hill, well, I won't speak for him, but I'm friends with him, and I haven't met his beloved Sarah yet. She and I are friends on Facebook, but he holds Anunnaki DNA and evidently is a hybrid of Enki.
Okay.
And I don't know if you're familiar with the Anunnaki, Enki and Enlil.
Well, I know Enki's, that's part of the Norse mythology, right?
Okay. I'm not
Like
sure about
Thor
that.
and Enki and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
So what you got to realize that like Thor, Zeus, all are the same characters, but from different either times or places, right? It's
or
all
different
over.
lifetimes. Yeah.
It all overlaps, kind of like Jesus is the same as Abraham and so forth, or whoever else is from a different time, right? I think that's another story. Is that we've lived
Well,
many
we
different
definitely
times.
have to have you come back
Yeah,
because I know a little bit too, and I'm not
yeah.
saying that what I know is absolute fact, but I mean,
We're piecing it all together through each
yeah, yeah,
other,
we're
right?
putting pieces together, and we might be able to, come gather some information together, or or activate one another where memories we're able to have
right,
some more memories come through.
for sure.
So, are you willing to come back on for a second show?
Yeah, absolutely. I
I
probably
would
need a
love to
couple
have you
weeks or
back,
something, but
Zachary. I'm
I would
sorry.
love. I would need a few weeks, but yeah, I
Oh
would love
yeah,
to.
it doesn't have
Yeah,
to. We could. Yeah, I have a lot. Well, I'll reach out to you about that at
yeah.
another time because we are coming up on the second hour,
Okay.
the ending of the second hour. So let's let's start wrapping it up, and I'll reach out to you and we'll work it out where we can set up a second, a part two, because I think just talking about that would be interesting for a
Yeah,
lot of
sounds
people.
amazing. We're
Yeah,
definitely on the
but
same page.
yeah. So tell people about okay, where people can contact you, your group and Telegram and all of that. Share
Yeah,
all
I don't know
that.
if I could talk about that on here without getting
You
hitting.
don't think it's a good idea?
No, because it's got uh words in there that will definitely get censored, right?
Okay, well, you can find Zachary Fisher on Facebook, and once you pull him up on Facebook, then you would see some of the groups that's linked to him,
Right,
and same thing with Telegram, correct?
right,
Okay, so they can find you that way.
right.
Um, you'll send to me on um, Messenger any contact information that you want to be shared
Sure.
under the video in the comment section. So when people watch this video, if they want to reach out to you or they want to
Right,
get involved or maybe connect with you to connect with your friend, you never know. Different people will watch a video and maybe somebody will want to put up some money to help get
right.
that movie going. I mean, so, and I look forward to seeing you and meeting your wife and meeting everybody and being a part of this event, which I think I think what you're doing is amazing, Zachary, and I love your posts. I see your
Yeah,
posts. I know your heart's in the right place, and 80,000 other people know that too. So
yeah. I mean,
you're doing,
I'm
yeah,
just really, I'm here so that we can actually do something. I remember as a kid always having a dream that things could be better, right? And every time I've ever expressed my views to other people, they tell me I'm crazy, that things are just the way that they are, and I'm like, nah, it's not right, you know. And
if you
I
could dream
literally
it, you
spend
can
every
achieve it.
minute of my life praying that we will all eventually come together and see that we can make this place way different than it is, right? We don't have to be victims. We don't have to be slaves, right?
No,
We are powerful god and goddesses, right? We just need to empower ourselves, and when I look back at my use of drugs and alcohol, I don't really consider it an addiction, right? Like we can be addicted to a lot of things. You can be addicted to good things and bad things. It's all just where you want to put your energy,
focus.
right?
Yeah, your
So
energy.
I don't like to call it an addiction because I'm not tied to it, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't own me. Like
Mm-mm.
there's not a thought in my mind that would ever allow me to get to that place again, right? And that is through empowering myself that I did that, right? No 12-step program got me there. It was a choice that I'm not going to be a victim to any of this shit anymore. And to be honest with you, and Sue says this to me all the time. She goes, "I'm worried that you're going to get bored of me because I'm just a simple person." And I say, well, you know what? My choice of wanting to be simple now, because I'm done learning my lessons, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah. Well, the lessons become more loving and
right,
right. So
right,
we
and
can
there's
learn.
still
Yeah.
still going to be hard lessons in life, right? But
But
I
you don't
choose
have to go
not to have
through
that karmic,
trauma and nonsense to learn lessons.
right?
My lessons are much more simple now. I learn them much quicker,
Yeah,
and it's a different as you move up,
yeah.
the lessons become lighter and more expansive and more fluid rather than
And you only
rigid.
entangle your energies with other people,
Right, exactly.
right?
There
You
you
don't
go.
let
That's
people
right.
suck you down into it with
Yeah,
them, right?
yeah.
That's important.
Well, I'm not a person. I used to, I never see myself as a victim, Zachary. But I did definitely honor the fact that I was victimized.
Right,
And when I decided to stop allowing myself to be victimized because I put myself in those situations, nobody did anything to me.
right,
I chose the situations I put myself in. Now, as a child, some bad things happen. But I do believe that there are some things that we agreed to prior to coming in order for us to have the full gamut of experiences so that we could expand our soul and grow.
yep,
And so I no longer blame anybody, including the government. The matrix is going to be the matrix, but we don't have to uh, participate in a way that is against us now. We can
right.
use it, use um, our gifts and our own abilities to manifest a life that feels good and that is helpful and useful
Hmm.
to ourselves and to others, be it our family, friends, coworkers, whatever. I don't feel connected to anybody really right now. I feel like I'm going through like what you were saying about
It's a
like,
transition,
yeah, I am
and,
going
and
through.
it's natural, and it's painful though, right? Like it's lonely, but what ends up happening at this point is we start to invite people into our lives that we can co-create the world we want, right?
Yeah.
And it's still tough because there's a lot of fakers out there, right? That act like they're team light and they're not, right? So you can fall into a trap of investing energy into some people that aren't here for the same mission, right? But
Sure.
but we're at that point now where and that's the point of this event that we're having, the day of being, is a day that we can all celebrate one another, right? That we can realize that we're allowed out of our houses to meet one another and to exchange ideas, because through the exchange of our ideas is the new world, right? Us sitting
Zachary, we're
around,
already living in it. You and
yeah,
I wouldn't have been able to come together like this
right,
20 years ago,
right.
10
But
years ago.
we're
I mean,
we're here, but nobody's. We've got to start taking the steps forward now to real first off realize that we're in the new world, like, and
first
then
off, we need to get like 20 people, everybody pitch in 10,000 and buy a bunch of land up and start growing our own food and
yeah,
creating our own cities or our own
I'm
towns.
thinking bigger than that though.
Okay, I'm just using it as an
I get
example.
you though.
So am I.
Yeah,
So, and I would love to be a part of a movement like that.
yeah,
We can do it. I
yeah,
mean, and when I say we, meaning whoever is coming from a genuine, authentic place. By the way, I used to always say I'm a chapter head, not a page, sometimes a book. I
right,
can feel when people are full of shit, and I'll tolerate,
right,
to an extent. But when I feel like somebody's really just not looking to be a team player and they want to, it's
yeah,
all about me, 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 I just can't do it. I have to walk
yeah,
away.
yeah,
Before I used to be somebody that would like tell you about yourself. I don't do that. I don't waste my energy with nonsense with people anymore.
right,
Right? You know what your intention is when you come into a situation, and you have to, ultimately you have to look in the mirror at some point and you
right,
decide whether you want to continue to behave that way, or are you going to be selfless in that we all have to have autonomy for sure, right?
hmm,
Our own autonomy, to get us up out of the bed and have some self-serving purposes, just to take a shower every day and do it. But when it comes to, some people just want to be millionaires and well, and go live a life on an island somewhere and don't care about nobody else.
Right.
And that's okay. I don't even judge them. Like, I don't
Right.
judge these people anymore. I don't know that I ever really judged them. I just felt like, God, all that money, you could be doing so much, something else with it rather than just,
Well, I wish I had that money that I had before to do what I wanted to do now, right?
your
'Cause
soul wanted the experience, Zachary, and you
oh
had the
yeah,
experience.
I
And then
had
you
my
wanted it.
experiences.
And then you wanted another experience, and that was
Yeah,
to not have it.
yeah.
So you got to experience both not having it and having it.
Well, and that's
That's
what.
what's grown your soul to in your consciousness.
And it's
It's
also
amazing.
what's allowed me to be where I am right now, right? So
Yes, that's
I
right.
get it.
Yep. Okay, sir. So we got 4 minutes. Any last couple words that you want to say or share or anything you want to share? Any place that people can find you? Is there any other events besides the one coming up? We do have that flyer, so
Well,
people do see it.
there's no other events coming up that we have planned yet. I mean, we have been talking about doing something out west or up north. But I'm from Maryland, so there are people up that way. It's just you know,
Well, if you do have an event in Maryland, please make sure you let me know because
yeah.
I could come home and hang out with family and be able to come to the
Yeah, we were
event. And
actually looking at some campgrounds up there. I don't know if it'll happen this year that we could uh, do like a weekend camp out, which would be cool.
campgrounds like where? Like
Uh,
Maryland, like Gaithersburg,
like
Maryland, like
West
Montgomery
Virginia
County.
area. There, like we
Oh,
found
West
one place
Virginia.
that was like on 800 feet of river, so it was all riverfront.
Wow.
It would be. They had a uh,
That would be
auditorium
awesome.
there, so or not an auditorium, but like an area where you could do events and things. So it'd be cool.
And
And
campers.
I'm a firm believer, like I, I don't want it to be about money. I don't want it to be about uh, speakers. I want it to be about each of us being individuals, right?
Yeah.
And I think that when you start to get money involved in some of these events, that you have part of the crew that goes, you're trying to make money off of us, and you have the other part that go, your ego's pushing you to do that, right? So that's why with this event I planned it in a
Money
way that
is just an energy exchange, just like
right,
anything else. You and I are exchanging energy by
right,
agreeing to come together in this moment and share
right,
this information. So, I mean, I don't see it either way. When people
yeah,
are just all about, they're selling tickets for $400 and $500 a
yeah,
ticket,
it's crazy.
then yeah. But then you have 10 speakers, 20 speakers, or whatever, and
But then you
everybody.
also have expectations then too, right?
Sure, I
Yeah,
agree. I
and
don't I don't waste my money in those things. I mean,
yeah,
I I shouldn't say. I mean, I don't know that I would never go to one. There's one Michael Salad's going to have here in Orlando in October, and Laura Eisenhower and some other people, and that would be something I would love to join. But I don't plan on spending $400 a ticket.
yeah.
So
I mean, that was the thought behind this whole thing was that nobody has to pay anything, so anybody of any you know economic range can show up as long and
I
all
get it.
you bring whatever you need for the day on the beach,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you have a good
I'm
day, right?
excited. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to end it. Thank you for coming on to Conscious Heart Solutions, Zachary. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. I trust that this will reach the hearts that it's meant to, and we'll have you come back. I'll be in touch, and we'll work out another date that's going to work out for you.
All right,
Let
great.
you enjoy your anniversary with your wife and get through
Thank you
this
so
event,
much.
and we'll work out. Yep.
I
So
appreciate
think
you.
about, yeah, absolutely. And we'll work out another day, maybe sometime in August. We'll have you come back for a part two.
All right, perfect.
How's that
Sounds
sound?
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Have a great night.
Yep, bye bye.